The National Council of Traditional Rulers in Nigeria is asking governments at the federal and also state level to ensure justice and fairness to all Nigerians. At an emergency NEC meeting of the council in Abuja over the social unrest in some parts of the country arising from the Sars protest, the Sultan of Sokoto, Sa'ad Abubakar III, asked Nigerian politicians to work towards a better country by changing the way things are done. In his submission, the Oni of Ife, Adeyeye Ogunwusi, asked the federal government to come up with initiatives that will bring government nearer to the people with a view to helping traditional institutions. The council gave assurances of its continued support to make the country a better place.
Now, there's a lot of discussion going on in Nigeria at the moment. The loss of trust in government and its institutions, part of a wider cultural story that's been playing out in this country for years. It's the story behind the hashtag #EndSARS protest. Well, one man who's been a consistent advocate for restructuring Nigeria is the Obi of Isele Uku Kingdom, His Royal Majesty Agbogidi Obi Nduka, and he joins us now. Thank you so much for joining us on Newsday, Your Royal Majesty.
Thank you for having me.
Let's begin by looking at the situation that has developed from the hashtag #EndSARS protest. Do you think that police brutality can be stopped in Nigeria? In your own opinion, do you think anything has changed from the protest?
Thank you for having me, and that's a very good question. Yes, I do believe that police brutality can come to an end. And so far, we haven't seen any reasonable reaction from the government, and we are hoping to do so.
All right. The Oba of Benin, at a point in time, waded into the Edo politics to call for a truce, which eventually helped out the election there in Edo State. Couldn't traditional rulers in their various domains across Nigeria been able to talk to or rein in their sons, youths, I mean, not to engage in the mayhem that followed the #EndSARS protests?
Yeah, that's very true. Traditional rulers can wade in, and I, for one, have also come into the matter telling the youths in my area to exercise restraint. So we can call on other traditional rulers to do the same.
The culture of hijacking protests, it's not a new one, and it's something that poses a huge threat to our democracy. People with ulterior motives always feel as though they can prey on the constitutional rights of citizens, and this needs to end somewhere. Where do we begin to address this? Because peaceful demonstrations should never end up resulting in widespread violence and death.
That's very true. At this point, we have to look inward, we have to reflect. And every institutions that we have, governmental institutions, religious institutions, traditional institutions, need to begin to educate their people. These discussions must be had, and we have to educate our people on what is right and what is good for us as a country. So until we are able to do that, then unfortunately, this kind of situations will continue, which is very unfortunate.
You had initially mentioned that there has been no quick reaction from the government to the protest. The hashtag #EndSARS protesters gathered a momentum, not just in Nigeria, but one that was reckoned with globally. How do you think that they can keep up that momentum? And do you foresee them returning to the streets?
So far, there have been movements, as I see on the local media, that very soon they will reconvene. But at the same time, the government must give them an enabling environment to air their views. Until that is done, then, of course, given the fact that the government hasn't reacted as swiftly as we thought they should have, but if that is not done, you see that there will be a movement by the younger generation to make sure that their views are aired.
You are a traditional ruler. what really should be the role of traditional rulers in politics in a country like ours, or do they have no role to play?
Well, unfortunately, constitutionally speaking, traditional rulers as we speak do not have a role to play. And that is very saddening. The truth of the matter is we as traditional rulers are closer to our people. We hear them, we talk to them, and we are the ones who they can run to. And it's unfortunate that we do not have a role to play constitutionally. And I believe if our lawmakers can look into this issue, most of these discussions we're having, we wouldn't have them. Because we have traditional rulers who are closer to the people who can always, at every point in time, guide their people. And it's important that we have a role in society, constitutionally speaking.
So how do you see this current awakening playing out in 2023? How do you see it transitioning the current voting class of Nigerians?
Personally, I am glad with the social consciousness that has been awoken in the younger generation. And you can see it playing out with the protest. And you can see that most of the young generation are looking forward to 2023. Most of them cannot wait for it to come sooner, for them to exercise their rights, for them to go out and vote for change, positive change.
Judicial panels have been set up across the country to look into police brutality, investigate them, and bring justice for victims. What is your take on the judicial panels that have been set up? Do you think that perhaps there should have been a role for traditional institutions?
Oh, thank you. First of all, the judicial panels that have been set up in many states, as I'm aware, including Delta State where we are, it's a step in the right direction. And what we are talking about has to do with security outfits. And for now, I wouldn't say traditional rulers have a role to play in the judicial panels that have been set up, because it has to do entirely with the government, and the government should deal with this squarely.
All right. Your Majesty, do you think or believe that successive governments have taken the Nigerian people, not just the youths, for granted in the scheme of things? And if this is so, how then can they begin to change the narrative?
Well, successive governments wouldn't take the younger generation for granted, because I believe over time we'll have the younger ones who are going to be in government, who should understand what the people need, who should understand the events of the day. And at the same time, they are younger, so they know what to do. And taking people for granted, no. We are coming to a point where we are being more enlightened than before. People are now asking questions. So anyone who wishes to take the younger generation for granted at this point in time is not doing himself any good.
Very well said. And what are your views on the social media bill? Do you think that government should be looking to regulate free speech, or rather finding ways to use social media to their advantage?
Well, I would advise that they use social media to their advantage. If you are talking about a bill, anything that has to do with a bill now is going to go against everything that has been written constitutionally. Nigerian citizens have fundamental rights, and those rights must be exercised. A bill trying to control social media will go against their fundamental rights, and which is not healthy for them. Rather, they should use it to their advantage.
Let me take you back to something you said earlier, the role of the traditional institution and how close they are to the people. And talking about police brutality in Nigeria, just how wide-scale truly is it? Are these horrendous stories new to you as a traditional ruler? Have you had the opportunity to hear some of these stories firsthand from your people?
Personally speaking, I have not heard firsthand any of these matters, but these situations happen across the country and they are relative. Some are worse than the others, some are mild, but these are situations that we get to hear every day. But personally, I haven't attended to such a matter of police brutality.
All right, before we let you go, the police, well, I don't know your area in Delta, but here in Lagos, the police at a point in time stopped being on the road, but they have now started coming out on the road gradually. Has the Nigerian system been fair to the Nigerian police to engender adequate, effective and efficient performance of their core mandate of the protection of lives and property? What more can the government really do to position our police for optimal performance?
That's true. That's the situation across the country. We do not find police officers on the streets, on the road anymore. But to answer your question, let's be very honest. The government has not been fair to the police officers. And that's one of the reasons for this protest. Reforms. Make sure that the police officers have what it takes to secure lives and property. Make sure they're well paid. Their incentives. That is the essence of the protest. So truly, this is a situation that the government has to look into.
Thank you. And lastly, just before we let you go, let's get your views on the restructuring of Nigeria, something that's come into conversation again in light of everything that's been happening.
Well, it depends on who you ask the question of restructuring.
Unfortunately, we seem to have lost the audio there from your end. The Royal Majesty Agbogidi Obi Nduka, the Obi of Isele Uku Kingdom in Delta State. Thank you so much for coming on Newsday.